I could be your angel hero. Would you wake up if I asked you to wake? Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Open your eyes! It's time to see all of the overflow.
Yes, it's time to wake up. William James said, in order to disprove the assertion that all crows are black, one white crow is all it takes. When it comes to reincarnation, we don't have to prove that everybody's reincarnated or everything. Just one case is enough. Let's look at one case. Maybe more.
Remarkable stories of the paranormal. Scientific testing. I'm Amanda Tapping.
There's a TV show dedicated to try to find the science and look for that real evidence, the validation, the verification, that would tell us proof positive.
This is an audio tape of a regressive hypnosis session. It may contain evidence that reincarnation exists. On this tape are 28 facts. 28 facts of one man's life that may hold the key to another man's past life.
There's a lot of names for what we call reincarnation, but actually that's the God principle coming back. Actually, when we get to calling this transmigration of souls, is a much better idea. The idea that there is life after death, and that karma has a strong involvement as to where you might end up in the next life, if you're lucky enough to have a next life.
This is Robert Snow, a captain in the Homicide Division of the Indianapolis Police Department. A 35-year veteran of the force, Snow is the prototypical cop. Analytical, no-nonsense, and intensely skeptical.
It would take a lot of evidence to sway this man. He would have to find an awful lot to get by his skeptical attitude. Trained as a cop, trained to think scientifically.
Paranormal, to me, is something you see on TV. It's something that happens on the X-Files and it happens in movies. It doesn't really happen to real people.
Most of us go through our lives taking that path, not really thinking about past lives, reincarnation. But for some people, it becomes a dangerous thought. They start to feed on it and think what that path might lead to.
It all started when a friend of Captain Snow's dared him to try past life regression therapy.
And eventually I ended up saying, yeah, I'd do it and I'll show you how stupid it is. But then I didn't really want to go do it. I really did. And I kept putting it off and putting it off. At the time, I thought particularly past lives was just a concept to explain bad things. I thought it was just something that people believed in because they didn't want to think they died.
A lot of people use this as a rationalization for things that happen bad in their life. Oftentimes there's suggestion, playful memories that dangerously just get stuck in the communications as that communication from deep in your soul.
First off, I didn't think I could be hypnotized. I thought I was much too strong-willed. I always thought hypnotists could only hypnotize weak-willed people.
I'm going to count down from 10 to 1. And with each number that I count, you will slowly become more deeply relaxed. 10, deeper, deeper relaxed.
As we relax the verbal conscious mind, the unconscious, the non-verbal side, that's in touch with the infinite, in touch with all things, past and present, that starts to be released.
For the first half hour, absolutely nothing happened.
But then with the verbal mind, the center of doubt, the center of skepticism, with that reduced, slowly the unconscious starts to open up and release, layer on layer, going deeper and deeper, releasing the unconscious, the non-verbal, until we find out some deeper unconscious.
Then, Bob Snow began to talk.
There's a globe on the floor. I have a small display case and a file cabinet.
He was describing these events, and I could hardly believe it. It was so descriptive. And then what struck me most, he said, "I'm so lonely." And I began to get choked up when he said that, and because here is a man I didn't think even had any emotions.
The deeper unconscious, that deep part of us, started to become released. He started to immerse himself, an immersion into the feelings of the past.
She walked me through several scenes, and I eventually found myself in an artist studio. I saw myself painting a portrait. It was a portrait of a hunchback woman.
The session lasted nearly an hour. However, the name of the artist was never revealed to Captain Snow.
This picture had an emotional charge. Perhaps a disability had triggered some feeling in him, and it was enough to open the door to a past life memory that would cascade.
After my regression with Dr. Griffith, I was really confused about what had happened. The trouble was it was so vivid, so startling, I didn't know what to make of it.
His confusion soon morphed into obsession.
As the cascade of emotions triggered possibilities, thinking of possibilities, and an obsession developed to try to understand these 28 factors.
It started bugging me. It really started bugging me really badly.
He became more obsessed with it, and it seemed the more obsessed he became with it, the more it disturbed me, because it just was out of the ordinary, and I mean, it was really consuming him.
Finally, Captain Bob Snow made a decision.
When I decided I had to look into this case and solve it to figure out what caused these memories to come up, I went back. I'd made an audio tape of my regression, and I went back to the audio tape, listened to it, and I wrote down everything I had said during my regression that could be proved or disproved.
Trying to understand the memories, and trying to link it all together, and recognizing that some of these memories might mean nothing, might be linked to other factors, and some of them might be related to a past life.
Snow claims he found 28 provable facts. 28 facts all recorded on audio tape. The quality of the tape is extremely poor, but these are actual excerpts from that therapy session.
To find all of these facts and to go into the mind, the places that keep you shifting.
I don't think a man gets up with my children. I wanted a glass of wine. What a pain, I'm walking with pain. I'm painting a portrait of someone. No, I don't like doing portraits. I need the money. I just got the blood clot to kill her.
In a past life, finding out the portraits and the paintings. The skilled person who lived such a long time ago was able to capture people's emotions and energies with painting. And now that factor, that brain, that memory, that consciousness was affecting another.
During the session, Bob recalled a piano as well. Also revealed was the number 1917 and the portrait of the hunchback woman. And this is where Captain Bob Snow's journey actually begins.
So now enough evidence has laid into his lap to create an investigation, to allow him to dig deeper and deeper. Could he verify these 28 things?
Bob began digging. If he could find the painting, he'd know the name of the artist.
I at first thought this would be easy. I thought, how hard could it be to find a painting of a hunchback woman? And I thought, well, it would take a day or two at the most to find it. And as it turned out, it was an unbelievable task.
Months of research yielded nothing, and Captain Snow was ready to give up.
Digging into the library, extensively, the literature, what could he find out? Could he find evidence of a past existence?
But it was still tough, because it would always enter my mind. There would always be this little nagging thought in the back of my mind that, where did this come from? Where did this vision come from?
Well, I discouraged Bob from revealing this to anyone outside of myself, even to our children, because I was afraid they would think that he'd lost his mind.
The quasi-ness of the past lives makes it difficult. And in our culture, people who look into this and try to find this evidence, it's pretty dangerous, because other people think they're crazy.
1 year after the past life regression, Bob took a trip to New Orleans, where he wandered into an art gallery and found himself staring at the portrait of the hunchback woman. The name of the artist who painted it? James Carroll Beckwith. No reproductions of that painting exist, and the original is owned by an anonymous collector. This sketch is based on Bob's description.
James Carroll Beckwith, the painter, who painted such elegant photos. Mark Twain, it's incredible, the skill.
I found the painting in New Orleans, and I found out who the artist was. Well, then I had a way to reopen the case. And so I came back to Indianapolis and began researching the name James Carroll Beckwith to see what I could find on him.
Being able to capture emotion in a painting, being able to capture a person's energy, it's a very incredible skill that this old mind, lost soul, had.
Being a captain on the police department, you know, there's a lot of authority. It's a very important position, and with him believing that he's a reincarnated painter, I had a problem with that, and I figured everyone else on the police department would have a problem with it also.
There are over 4 billion, with a B, billion people in the world who believe in soul transmigration, reincarnation, to some extent. And yet in our culture, people who believe in it are thought crazy.
Bob pressed on. However, finding information on Carroll Beckwith was only slightly easier than finding the portrait of the hunchback woman. Captain Snow started his research at the public library.
Digging into the books, digging into what he could find, the evidence, the written evidence, trying to understand the evidence of a past existence, of a past life.
It was just a teeny amount that you had to dig for. And I had assumed that I had stumbled across his name sometime in my life when I was doing some kind of reading. But I found there's no way I could have, because the references to him were just very few and far between.
Dr. Ian Stevenson founded the Division of Perceptual Studies in 1967 to look into this past life phenomena, reincarnation. And they recognized that there could be possibly some type of subliminal memory that had happened. They tried to rule that out as much as possible. And in so many places, so many cases, they found it to be impossible.
Captain Snow kept looking. The search eventually led him to the National Academy of Design in New York. There, he found the diaries of James Carroll Beckwith.
And he opened the book and had the actual diary.
Turns out Beckwith kept a diary from his 19th birthday up to the day he died when he was 65.
The diary was 17,000 handwritten pages long.
Problem being is that Beckwith, he was not a terribly good, he didn't have terribly good penmanship. He did a lot, he scribbled a lot. And I was frightened always to pass over any sentence that I thought it might be a key.
The painter was eloquent and emotional and sensual and was able to capture feelings, emotion. Here in a painting of the victor, a feeling of emotion that this painter could capture and transmit.
Snow obtained copies of the diaries and spent a year going through all 17,000 pages. And what did he discover? Confirmation of all 28 facts.
So now he was better able to understand, and he was able to see that there was a validation, a touch of a verification, a link, an evidence base that helped to deepen his feelings.
References to Beckwith's wife, Bertha, and the sad fact that they couldn't have children. Bertha playing piano. Beckwith drinking wine.
I wanted a glass of wine.
A walking stick.
With a cane, a wolf with a cane.
Beckwith's mother's death. A stroke caused by a blood clot.
Doctor said the blood clot killed her.
He hated painting portraits.
I don't like doing portraits.
He didn't seem to like doing portraits, even though he did them so well. Perhaps it was an emotional link. And maybe he didn't like, maybe he did. It's hard to tell. But here we have another photo. So he captured a whole different type of energy, a real type of realism in the pictures. This artist was able to transmit an emotional quality, and perhaps this deepened the link for the past life.
The final diary entry in 1917, the day before Beckwith died. And finally, a distinct reference to the infamous hunchback woman. Bob Snow began to believe the unbelievable, that he was the reincarnation of James Carroll Beckwith.
Here's a self-portrait of James Carroll Beckwith as a young man. We could see a type of fire, a type of contemplation. As an older man, not so old, we see a type of reflection, a stability, a consciousness.
I held out to the rational belief that this is not true until the very, very end. Until I got to the part where I found out his mother died of a blood clot. You might know he won awards, you might know he died in 1917. It's not going to say his mother died of a blood clot. And that, to me, that was probably the factor that pushed me over to the other side.
And then as an older man, a state of resolution in James Carroll Beckwith. A type of straight fortitude. And as a much older man, a man faced with coming to the end, we see a type of sadness in the eyes.
Before that, I kept saying, no, there's got to be some way you knew this stuff.
Once he made all the connections and he explained it to me, I still felt like there's got to be something else going on here. I just couldn't believe that my husband was a reincarnated painter.
But this man knew it. He closed the door on the diary and knew.
A skeptic might feel the same way. Beckwith was obscure, but Captain Snow's research does indicate that with some digging, the information is available. In addition, Snow is a published author who has written several books on police procedure. The fact that he has now written a book about his reincarnation experience has created more doubts.
Some people challenge that perhaps he wrote this book to make money. That could be, but it just, in the whole story, seems unlikely to be soul motivation.
Bob really believes that he was Carroll Beckwith in a past life, And I think most people tend to think that Bob's doing this just because he writes books and this is a new angle for a book. Bob is not the type of person that would invent a story to write a book.
There's even a better case of a young boy who said that he was a past life of a fighter pilot who was down in World War II by the Japanese. And the story is very in-depth, and we cover it in some of our other places more thoroughly.
The tough part was accepting what I found. Only because to accept what I found as a truth, I had to reorder my thinking. Because Western thinking is not centered on reincarnation. The really hard part is realizing people I'd kind of smiled and, kind of shrugged at, thought they was cookie weirdos, were right and I was wrong.
The developing story seemed to be overwhelming. The evidence seemed to be overwhelming, and I think that we have more than just one white crow.
Is Captain Robert Snow really a reincarnated 19th century painter? The matching 28 facts would certainly make you think so.
Is reincarnation, transmigration of the soul? It's impossible. But so many people believe in it in the world. And I believe that we can now understand it in quantum theory.
But how do you test a story like this? The obvious choice is a method Captain Snow himself is familiar with. A polygraph exam.
Well, I think I'm pass it. I have no problem at all taking it. No problem at all.
The polygraph is something that we use in our technology, and it's hardly something that could be utilized for absolute proof, but it can give us a very good idea. The fact that this man volunteered for the polygraph is step one, and we measured the body electric. Could the soul of the man who had the ability to capture this with paint, with his hand, could this man and his soul and his consciousness have come forward through time? Well, according to the most major religions of the world, transmigration of souls is a way of life.
Police Captain Bob Snow claims he's the reincarnation of painter James Carroll Beckwith, who died in 1917. Under regressive hypnosis, he came up with 28 facts about the painter's life.
Here we see the painter in another self-portrait. And we start to feel that this man, having looked into this, started to feel this connection and feel this link. Another photo, another picture, another painting. Very, very good, very talented. And this person had reached through time to be able to influence another. An idea of a transmigration of the soul, a consciousness, a shared consciousness through time.
Details like a hunchback woman Beckwith once painted, a blood clot that killed Beckwith's mother, and his dislike of portrait work. After a year of exhaustive research, Bob was able to verify all 28 facts as true.
Well, proof positive, perhaps. We definitely see some proof, some substantial proof. And I think we see a white crow here.
And I'd assumed that I had stumbled across his name sometime in my life when I was doing some kind of reading, but I found there's no way I could have.
To determine if his story is credible, Captain Snow agreed to submit to a polygraph examination.
The polygraph is intriguing, as it offers us a type of insight into the person, into their mind, helping for us to understand the electrophysiology that cannot be withheld by the unconscious.
regarding whether you were familiar with J. Carroll Beckwith prior to your visit to New Orleans. Do you intend to answer truthfully each question about that?
Yes.
Prior to your first regression session with Dr. Griffith, did you have any conscious knowledge of J. Carroll Beckwith?
No.
Not regarding this situation, do you remember ever falsifying information in order to sell more books?
No.
Prior to your 1993 visit to New Orleans, were you already familiar with a painter named J. Carroll Beckwith?
No.
When you first visualized the number 1917 during self-hypnosis, did you know the significance of that number?
No.
The polygraph tells us that the man was truthful in his intent, and that he was not trying to hide his intentions. This adds to our proof positive.
How will the results match up to the earlier exam?
All your reactions and responses are broken down into numerical scores. And we have a final score that tells us what category you fall into, truthful, deceptive, or inconclusive. The results of your exam are showing us a +10, a +5, and a +7 on all of your relevant questions. The threshold for truthfulness is a +4. So anything higher than a +4 with this particular test is showing truthfulness. Overall, that concludes that you would not be attempting deception to any of these relevant questions to a 95% certainty.
In quantum theory, we could think of the quantic brain and holding a consciousness. That consciousness might be transferred to another place through time and space.
The whole idea of reincarnation is tremendously controversial, and it's not a mainline American belief. And I knew when I put this out that there was going to be a lot of people saying, oh, he's lying, he's making this up. And it's nice to show, I have scientific proof, that I'm not making it up. I'm telling the truth.
If we look at Dr. Tucker's research and try to understand what has done, we will see some interesting things. That the median age of the person, the previous person, 28 at their death. 60% of them are male. 70% have violent deaths. Most of them are the same sex. And we start to see that the child is able to mostly remember these. It's not quite often the memories of an older person. But in this case, we've seen, as our policeman, that his memories are intact.
Is Bob Snow the reincarnation of painter James Carroll Beckwith? You may have your own opinions, but the polygraph results, combined with the 28 facts, make Snow's story difficult to refute. Until we have further evidence, this case is proof positive.
You can read more in the book, and you can get this for free if you wish, and basically start to maybe open the mind, open the hearts, start to recognize that just quite possibly those 4 billion people who believe in transmigration of souls could be right. And maybe we have more than just one white crow.